Efteling is pure magic with enchanting rides and fairy tale magic round every corner. But even this iconic park has some room for improvements. So let's discuss what I would keep, what I would scrap, and anything I'm not overly fussed about. Now, for some of these rides, I'm going to attempt to say them in Dutch, and I'm probably going to butcher them, so I apologise if you are Dutch or speak Dutch. The first one is Baron 1898. Now, this is a B&M dive coaster, and it's probably the most heavily themed lift hill anywhere in the world. It is absolutely spectacular what they have done in terms of theming this attraction. And you'll see that throughout this whole video, that is an area where Efteling just excel. They have fantastic theming. So this has that whole backstory, has pre-show, has a well-themed lift hill. The attraction itself, it's not the longest by any stretch of the imagination. It is significantly longer than Oblivion, so you know, there is that. The drop is okay. I still think, despite criticising Oblivion for being so short, it's one of the better drops out there. So this one, the drop's okay, but then there are a couple of other elements after that. I think as a whole package though, it is fantastic, and we're going to start this on a positive note and keep it. So one of the attractions that has been there for quite some time is Python. Now, this is an old Vekoma looper. It has been completely retracked. I think around about 2018 they replaced most of the track. I think the lift hill and the brake section is as it was, but you can kind of see when you look at it, there's the old track and then the new one's kind of got more ties. It is a very smooth ride, so you know, I have to compliment it on that. It is very strange the way that it works though. It is the slowest lift hill I have ever seen. Now, some people will go, oh, that's only when it's in 2-train operation, because they take their time to go up the lift hill to allow the second train. I find that strange. Listen, I'm sure it's true. I'm not doubting it in any shape or form. Typically, you hold things on the brake run, and then you would just send the second one out, fly up the lift hill, and then that first one would be back in the station. So in the unlikely event the other one came back, you would hold it on the brake run as well. But they've obviously decided to do this where it's the lift hill that goes super slow, unless it's on a 1-train operation. That said, I mean, it's a smooth ride, as I say. It is definitely not one that I'm like, oh, I have to get on Python. So they've obviously put a bit of money into this with retracking it. I'll put it in the take it or leave it pile, because well, it's never nice to see any coaster removed. Now, an attraction that cost them an absolute fortune, it's one of the more expensive dark rides anywhere in the world, is Symbolica. Now, this is one of those trackless dark rides. I think it's ETF rides that do it. There's 3 different rides, 3 different tours in this. And I say that, realistically, they're all the same, bar one room, where you split off, do something different, and then come back together again. It is really, really well done. It is fantastically well done. The whole pre-show with Pardoes and then the stairs separating and stuff as you go through is just fantastic. I mean, it really, again, I cannot compliment this park highly enough for their immersion and their theming. And this ride is no different. So it is no surprises that I'm going to keep this attraction. Now, the park has a set of dueling wooden coasters known as Joris and the Draak. And again, these are fantastic. That tune, which I'm trying not to hum in my head because it'll be stuck there for days, it does get in your head. It is a really nice soundtrack. There are, as I say, 2 competing sides to this one. There's the fire and ice, or water and ice, water and fire. There's a blue and a red. There's a watery thing and a fiery thing, and you know, the good thing is it is. Well, I say it's random. I'm not sure actually whether they slightly delay the dispatch on one side, because I've seen the same side win 3 or 4 times, and then I go on it and that side fails. So maybe they're like, oh, there's that Chris. Let's just make sure that side doesn't succeed. Or maybe I'm just too heavy and I slow it down. I don't know. In any case, it is a fantastic set of coasters, and it's no surprises that I'm going to choose to keep them. So just next to those dueling coasters is their water coaster, De Vliegende Hollander, so the Flying Dutchman. This thing, the first time I went to the park, this was closed for winter maintenance. At the time of filming, it is closed for winter maintenance, but I have been on this and it is fantastic. A couple of criticisms about it. I mean, so the queue line is, again, fully immersive, very well themed, happy days. The loading station is beautiful. I think some of the sections, the indoor sections, are maybe too dark. Like, there's one bit that is fantastic because you really do feel like you're out at sea. Like, you know, they've got the wind, it's quite dark and stuff. Then there's other bits where you've got these other boats and it's maybe just too dark in there. Well, you don't want it to be like a full, like, bright show, but it is a little bit hard to see. And then of course you leave, you've got that Kraken drop as you come out the building, and then there's that splashdown section and then back through the water again. So It is a fantastic ride. I'm not 100% sure the manufacturer, but I'm pretty sure it's some random manufacturer. Could be wrong on that, let me know in the comments down below. But nonetheless, fantastic ride and one that I'd keep. So next one I'm going to bring up is another dueling set of coasters, and that is the Mack powered coasters known as Max and Moritz. Now, again, as I said with the last set, you know, the soundtrack in this can get stuck in your head. You do 2 laps, just no matter which one of them you choose. And the second one, I'm not sure if the train actually goes faster or if it's just the music speeds up to give you the feeling that you're going faster. There is one train that always wins. I can't remember which one it is, but definitely this, because it's a powered coaster and there's no gravity involved, it's going at the same speed every single time it runs, and there's one side that always wins. So just bear that in mind. But nonetheless, it is a fantastic set of little coasters. It replaced a bobsled coaster known as Bob, which I never got to experience, but this particular set of dueling coasters I would keep. Now, they've got an indoor coaster, and it's quite an odd little thing. So from the outside, there is this gigantic eagle thing that's head moves as you're walking into the building. You go into the building, the queue line is quite dark. You turn a corner, and then there's this giant egg above you. And then you go up some steps, and then you go down into the loading bay. And of course, this is Vogel Rok. Now, the attraction for the most part is pitch black. Absolutely love it, don't get me wrong. You start off on that sort of lift hill, you go down, and then you're almost immediately blinded by the on-ride photograph, and then you can't see a damn thing after that. There's sound effects flying past you and stuff. And then there is this point where you go straight shooting through, I think it's like a snake's mouth or something like that, and then back into the station. It is fantastic, it's good fun. Again, probably not the most themed, considering everything else. I mean, it's a dark ride, so like intentionally dark. But I still enjoy it. In fact, when I went with my kids, lapped it many times. So another one that I'm going to add to that keep list. Right, so next door to that is a very different attraction known as Carnival Festival. Now, this is often compared to It's a Small World. I'm not going to get into the debate of who was first and which is better and all that sort of stuff, but it's the same sort of idea with all these sort of different countries that you go through with, you call them animatronics? I mean, there's like these little guys that move around a little bit. It's different in that It's a Small World is a boat ride, and this is an Omnimover ride that turns you around. It has another one of those god-awful tunes that get stuck in your head. And I can hear it now that I'm talking about the ride, and it just goes on and on and on. There's a lot of stuff in here that I'm kind of surprised still exists, like by modern standards. Now, outside a ride I'm not going to touch on, they've got the teacups, or the equivalent of teacups, and that used to be a very politically incorrect ride, shall we say, and they had to tone it down and retheme it. There's definitely elements inside this that could be argued the same, that they are just not appropriate by today's standards. Don't get me wrong, I think some things have gone too far in the world, but yeah, some of this is just inappropriate, and personally, I'd scrap this thing. I'm sure I'm going to get some hate for saying that, but I'd get rid of it. So there's an attraction that is probably one of the longer attractions I have ever been on. Maybe not quite as long as Rise of the Resistance, and that is the Gondoletta. Now, it's just a set of boats that go around the lake, but it is very long, very slow. It's one of those, so I think when I did my tips video, one of the things I said was, it's great after you've had some food. In fact, I think a lot of the locals will eat on the ride because they allow you to take your own food in. So, you know, have a little picnic on this boat. It takes, I want to say it's 15 to 20 minutes. Like, it's really long. And I was kind of warning people in that tips video, if you've got dinner reservations or whatever, just bear in mind, you know, you can't be like, oh, just go on this boat ride for 5 minutes because you'll miss your dinner reservation. That said, I mean, it's good for what it is. It's a nice relaxing ride, and as I say, you can enjoy your lunch on there. I'll personally not go on it many times. I might not ever go on it again, to be honest. It's like there's nothing special about it. I wouldn't necessarily scrap it. I think it has a purpose. So I'm going to put this one in that take it or leave it pile. So one of the rides when you first enter the park, depending on which direction you go, of course, is Fata Morgana. Now, this is, again, I regularly compare things here to Disney, and it's not me trying to say they've copied Disney or But it's more for if you've never been to the park, you may have the reference to the Disney version, and that would be like their version of Pirates of the Caribbean. So it is a boat ride. It is incredibly well themed, some fantastic scenes in there, some really strange ones. There's this guy, I don't get the reference. I'm sure if I was Dutch I'd probably know this story very, very, very well. Quite often when you go on the ride, outside there's this big sort of puppet thing, like a big guy, like a huge, giant guy, big puffy cheeks. But yeah, you go through his legs at one point and it's kind of strange. So that said, it is still a very good ride. And I say, again, that immersion, that detail, that theming. So I'm going to put this one in the keep pile. Now, a ride that this park is known for, and it's a ride that I didn't get on the first time I went because it was closed for winter maintenance, was Droomvlucht. Dreamflight, I think it is. Again, apologies if I've said that really badly. But effectively, this is a indoor dark ride. It's a sort of suspended ride. Now, there's a lot of debate about whether this counts as a credit or not, because for the most part, it's powered, and it takes you through this route. Beautifully themed, immersion. There's this section where there's these kind of floating castle things. Unbelievable, really, really well done. Then you get to the end, and then there's this sort of downwards helix spiral where, as far as I'm aware, they just release you from the track, well, not from the track because you'd fall, but they release the sort of mechanism that powers you and just let gravity do its thing. And so therefore there are a number of people who think, well, there's a section of this that's gravity powered, that makes it a coaster, therefore it's a credit. I'd love to know your thoughts on this one. Nonetheless, this is a fantastic attraction, and again, ridiculously well themed. So I'm going to add this one to the keep pile. So the park actually has a prototype attraction, and it's one that is now in many, many parks around the world, but they were the first to have it. And that is their Vekoma Madhouse, known as Villa Volta. Now, I'm sure many of you have been on a Vekoma Madhouse. There's one at Towers known as Hex. It is that illusion of a spinning room that goes upside down. This particular one though, I don't know, I wasn't massively impressed with it. I don't know if it's just because it's the prototype, and we all know how that goes, right? Usually, yes, you could be the first, but that typically means you're not the best because they improve it over time. So it could just be that. I think some of it also comes to the pre-show. There's a number of things in Efteling that are either in English or subtitled in English. So the pre-show for Baron, subtitles. I could understand the whole backstory. This one, I could not. Now, I've had people explain it to me in the comments before, and that's great. But many people who go over there and don't speak Dutch have no clue what is going on. I think, listen, don't get me wrong, I get it. You're in another country, that's their native tongue. I'm not expecting them to have this pre-show in English. It would be nice if there was subtitles. That's all I'm saying. Certainly a lot of places do that, including this park. So for me, it's definitely not the best Vekoma Madhouse, and I wouldn't be sad to see it go, so I'm going to put this one in that scrap pile. So there's an attraction that there's not very many of these left these days. Apparently they used to be reasonably common, and I can only think of a couple of parks that still have them, and that is the Pagode. Now, this is this kind of raised platform, starts obviously on the ground so you can get on it, goes up, and then you get these great views around the park, and it rotates slowly and stuff. It is good, don't get me wrong, and there are some fantastic views to see from up there. I mean, I guess it's one of those, you would do it during the day, you could do it at night, you'd maybe do it in the winter when it's snowy, but other than that, once you've done it, you know, there's not a huge amount different to see. So for me, as I say, it's a rare attraction these days and it's fairly unique, so I certainly wouldn't get rid of it, but I'm not massively enamoured by it, so I'm going to put it in the take it or leave it pile. Right, so the next thing is, it's a staple of Efteling, and it is kind of, some would say it's what makes Efteling Efteling, and so I'm probably not going to be very popular for this one. And that is the Fairytale Forest. Obviously not a ride, it is more of an attraction. It's quite large and detailed. I think when I did the tips video I did say, look, you know, leave yourself some time, several hours. You know, it's not like, oh, I can go around that in 20 minutes, or, well, you could, but you'd be flying past it and missing most of it. And don't get me wrong, it is fantastic. Again, there's no surprises, the detail, the immersion, it's all there. Now there's a load of stories that I don't get the reference to because they're not children's stories I was brought up with. So for me, I would definitely not get rid of this, do not get me wrong, because, you know, as I say, it is one of those unique points of Efteling. But at the same time, personally, it's not something I go there for. So I have seen it, I appreciate it, but I would put it in the take it or leave it pile. Now, there's something that I was kind of surprised by and missed on my first visit, and that is the Fabula 4D, their kind of, well, their 4D show, effectively. It's kind of hidden off to the side. There's a restaurant, and I saw the restaurant, I didn't realise there was the attraction besides it. It is fantastic, it is really well done, it is a beautiful story. I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but if you do visit the park, make sure you don't miss this one, because it is one that I would keep. So, the park has obviously got a rich heritage, and there's some older attractions there, and one of those is their Stoomcarrousel, which, yeah, this one I'm not going to try and say in Dutch. I'm just going to get it wrong. So, their Stoomcarrousel, it's indoors, and I mean, for the most part, when you look at it, it's a carousel. It's a crazy carousel though. It's quite violent, it's quite fast. In fact, there are multiple members of staff on the ride, and usually, so there's a couple of bits, I think it's the horses that you sit on. If there's a young child on that, there will be a member of staff standing behind them, ready to catch them. It is crazy, but it's good to see these older attractions being kept and maintained. You know, don't get me wrong, I love the shiny new stuff, but it is nice to see some of that heritage. So I'm going to keep this one. I've done a load of videos like this recently, and typically a lot of parks have the pirate ship. No exception here. Now theirs is Halve Maen. I think it's Halve Maen. It's a really good one. It's a great cycle. I think when it opened it was one of the largest in Europe. Pretty sure that has now been beat, but it's a pretty giant pirate ship, and it is quite intense, and it is a great cycle. So no surprises here, but I would keep this one. So the last two attractions I'm going to cover are two attractions I have not experienced firsthand. Now, one of these is because once when I went it was closed, and the other time it didn't appeal to me, and that is their rapids. Now, for the most part, rapids are rapids. I've not experienced this one, so I cannot say I want to get rid of it, and I cannot say I want to keep it, because I do not know. So I'm going to put this one in the take it or leave it, because to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing spectacular about it. But let me know down below if you have experienced this one, if I'm missing out on something that I need to experience the next time, or if you agree and it's something that, just let it go. So the last attraction is one that I've not been on because I was there before it opened, and that is Danse Macabre. Now, this is this brand new attraction, first of its kind, this sort of tilting seats thing. I really want to get on it, and I've thought about kind of going over there and just going on that ride. I do get 1 day free entry to the park with my Blackpool season pass. Seems a bit of a waste to just go in for the one attraction, so I don't know when I'm going to get on this one. I timed it really badly because I was out there late August, early September, and it opened for Halloween, so I missed it by about a month. However, I have only heard positive things about this one. I'd love to know if you've been on this attraction, let me know what your thoughts are, because so far nobody has had a bad word to say about it, and I'd love to see what it's actually like. I'm actually also really curious because my partner typically is not a fan of anything that spins. She gets bad motion sickness, but I have heard this, although this does actually spin, that it's not that kind of spinning. There's some, she likes Guardians of the Galaxy, right? That is spinning, but it's controlled and it's slow, and it's not like just going hell for leather. So I'm curious what this one is like. That said, because nobody has had a bad word to say about it, I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt and put it in my keep pile. Right, if I've done the maths right, there is a ridiculous amount of things in this park that I would keep, and some that I wouldn't. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'm sure there are things you agree with me, and no doubt there are some you disagree with, and that is totally fine. That is the whole point of this. It is all about personal opinion. So let me know yours down below. If you have enjoyed this one, hit that like button. Do consider subscribing. I've been Chris, you've been watching Coaster Dad, and I shall see you in the next one. Adios!